Najee Harris and the Pittsburgh Steelers, and why the Pittsburgh Steelers need to make Najee Harris prove that he's worth any contract before they start dabbling in what he's worth today. This is Steelers Therapy. I'm Ron John. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, comment. It'll really help get the podcast, this channel, and the blog off the ground. Here we go. So let me tell you my thoughts on Najee Harris. I've been reading a few articles, especially by folks like Steelers Depot, DK Pittsburgh Sports. They've all sort of given their take on Najee Harris, and I'm going to give you a more realistic one from a seasoned business professional and somebody who's a Steelers historian and knows football. So the first thing is, from Najee Harris's perspective, he wants paid. Everybody wants paid. We know that. So let's get that out of the way. It's not about what he thinks he's worth, not worth. Every football player is trying to get the biggest contract they possibly can. So regardless of what he thinks he's worth or what he's saying and those type of things, it doesn't matter. What matters is what he's actually worth to the Pittsburgh Steelers and those who control money. And when you look at Najee Harris, let's look back to 2021, I think, when he was drafted. He has not performed. He's not performed like a first-round draft pick. He was obviously taken too high, and that's the Steelers' fault. That's not Najee Harris's fault. But I think, from his perspective, other people's perspective, he's a number one pick. Or they'll say he's had 3 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. Those are not real statistics. Those don't provide any value to assess somebody and to assess the dollars that you're going to give them. They're sort of, whimsical statistics. They don't really mean anything. It's kind of the same thing when people say, Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season. That's not a real stat. That's not a good way to assess a head coach in that they never had a losing season. Because you could have a head coach that's gone 8-8 their entire career, never won a playoff game, right? So it's not a good way to assess them. So Najee Harris was a first-round pick, and let's just see really quickly how he's performed since he's got to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay, so the first thing I look at when I look at running backs is their yards per average. Some people say the most important thing is success rate. I think they're both equally important. We have to use both. But let's look at yards per attempt. So we've got 3.9 yards per attempt in 2021, 3.8 yards in 2022, and 4.1 in 2023. Now, in a vacuum, that doesn't mean much. You have to establish benchmarks. And benchmarks do change through time. As you have quarterbacks now that are throwing for 4,000 plus yards a season. That wasn't the case in the 1970s and 1980s. You could throw for far less and be an excellent quarterback. So what are the benchmarks? Well, let's take a look. So yards per attempt here, we're going to filter from last year's stats in 2023. This includes quarterbacks and running backs, but we've got Lamar Jackson leading the pack with 5.5 yards a carry. Then we got Christian McCaffrey. Oh, look, there's Jalen Warren with 5.3. We have to come all the way down to spot 23 to get Najee Harris at 4.1, and this was his best year. And then if you keep going down, they've got, the top 48. So he's about right in the middle of the pack. I would say they're mostly bunched up, in the lower middle tier around 4 yards a carry, just over 4 yards a carry. So he's about mid to low tier as far as yards per carry go. So that's what we have there. Now let's go back to Najee's success rate. Success rate in 2021 was 47.5%. 2022, 46%. 2023 was 48%. So what's a good benchmark? What would we expect him to be hitting here? So if we come to success rate, let's filter. Okay, we've got top guys like, really it's quarterbacks that are kind of at the top here, probably because they're, asked to sneak and just pick up a yard or so. But we got a lot of running backs. James Cook, Mostert, Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, and we keep coming down to 27 in Najee Harris at about 48%. Again, it's got the top 48. Who's ahead of Najee Harris? Alvin Kamara, Jonathan Taylor, Zach Moss, Joe Mixon, James Conner, Tony Pollard. So again, he's middling and maybe just under middle. And if you guys remember this past season, Najee Harris, had a better second half of the year. He really had a poor first half of the year. So he was able to, get his stats a little bit better as the season went on. But in 2022, 2021, when he was 23 and 24 years old, he was, these are 3.8, 3.9 yards a carry, lower success rates. And I think that those years they had better runners as well. So he's not performed like a first round pick. You would expect a first round running back to be in the top of the league. That's why you draft him there. One other call to concern here is he's going to be 26 in 2024, which is his last year in contract. And then he's going to start getting into his late 20s when running backs usually, take a lot of that punishment. So it's not like he started young at 20, 21, 22. He started off a little bit older. So taking all of this into consideration, as I look at Najee Harris, he's not an awful running back by any means. He's proven he can be tough. He can get some tough yards, but ultimately he doesn't perform. That's the first thing. He doesn't perform in even the middle half or above the middle half. Number two, he's not explosive. So when you see him come off the line, he doesn't have that explosive ability like Jaylen Warren has or some of the other top backs. If you guys remember, Le'Veon Bell was extremely explosive. He was patient, he would wait, and then he would explode through the hole. Najee Harris is slow accelerating. And number three, Najee Harris is just slow in general. He doesn't have a second gear. He can't really make big plays. He hasn't shown that he makes big plays or explosive runs. Le'Veon Bell suffered for that as well. But Le'Veon Bell, had so many other traits and things that made him a good runner. And he was ultimately one of the best receivers on the team. And Najee Harris doesn't catch the ball very well either. He does okay, but nothing special. So what are you paying him for? Why would you pay a running back to be middling, less than, lower middle? You can find these guys right off the street. You can find them in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round. It doesn't make sense to pay a guy like Najee Harris really any money, especially when you have a guy like Jaylen Warren who is ascending. You can replace Najee Harris pretty easily. And it's the reason why the Steelers haven't picked up his 5th-year option. He is good to have on the team. Don't get me wrong. It's a good 1-2 punch with Najee and Jaylen Warren, but Najee Harris isn't the one providing the explosive plays. I'll tell you what, let's even look at that. Let's see what his explosive plays look like. Okay, long rushes. Breece Hall, 83 yards. H.N., 76 yards. Let's keep going down in the 50s, into the 40s, into the 30s. Where's Najee Harris? Oh, goodness gracious. He is 77th with his longest play of 25 yards. That's not good enough. That's not good enough at all. And if your longest play is going to be 25 yards, kind of like Le'Veon Bell, then you need to have a better yards per carry average. And he just doesn't. So he really doesn't do anything well. And again, this isn't to, crap on Najee Harris and make him feel bad, make his fans feel bad. It's just reality. If the Steelers want to consider keeping him, he's got to show something this year. He's got to show actually what he's worth, because to this point, he's not really worth keeping. Now, if he improves this year and shows that maybe he does have some of that bruising ability, can get his yards per carry up, can be a little bit more explosive, can really complement Jaylen Warren, then I would say, yeah, bring him back on a team-friendly deal. But running backs that are older in general, when they come in the league, running backs that don't perform in the top half, they don't get paid, nor should they. It's such a fungible position. And, everybody in the world knew the Steelers weren't going to pick up his 5th-year option. Omar Khan has proven in the way he's drafted, in the way he's starting to build the team, that he's too smart for that. There is a place potentially in the future for Najee on this roster, but it's not going to be for big money. It's not going to be for first round pick money, and he's going to have to come back on a team friendly deal. He's likely not going to want to do that. And there's going to be a running back, a team that's running back poor out there that, would even just love a middling to lower middle running back like Najee Harris that, is probably going to pick him up for maybe just a few bucks more than what the Steelers would offer him. Again, it depends on how he does this year. But those are my thoughts. There's a lot of folks out there that think we should give him a contract. I think some of these guys, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but some of these middling to lower middle running backs have been paid, a few million a year on a 2-3 year deal or something like that. It's just entirely too risky and really kind of, not smart to give him a contract unless, somehow Omar Khan is able to get him a contract on already an even better team friendly deal. We can bring down his, salary for potentially this year and have more cap space, but I don't see them being able to do a deal like that. So those are my thoughts on Najee Harris, our therapy session for today. I know it's not a long session, but it's something that I was thinking about. Again, this is Steelers Therapy. If you like this content, please subscribe, hit the like button, comment. We're going to get the blog up and going. We're going to get the podcast up and going, and you're going to get great Steelers content with a unique perspective from me, from a business perspective, from a Steelers historian perspective, and maybe just something a little bit different and a breath of fresh air. So once again, I'm Ron John, and we'll see you next time.